All right, here we are. People are coming in. Welcome, 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 everybody. Hello, hello, hello. Um, I'm Kay Rocco Shields. I'm an award-winning filmmaker, Congress awarded educator, and founder and CEO of Genius Academy. We'd love to get to know you as you're coming in. So let's go ahead and launch our poll so we can find out what your area of focus is. Go ahead and pop that poll up. Wonderful. So, not long ago, I was speaking to a professor, and that's one of my favorite things to do. And they said to me, I really want to prepare my student for the real world, and I love what you do, but every week there's another AI tool. And so I don't know which ones are hype, which ones work, or how to even start without blowing up my course. And so that's really the reality for educators right now. And that's why we're here today. And as one of the earliest AI simulation companies, I'm excited to help with cutting through the noise and bringing on some very special guests that have been instrumental in shaping what we do at Genius Academy, but also just leaders in the education space. So to help us, we've got James Kenningsberg, Chief Innovation and Technology Officer at American Public Education. Say hi, James.
Hi, everyone.
He's a leader who has scaled many ed tech companies from startup to global powerhouse and has so much knowledge and so many great nuggets. I'm excited to see what he comes up with today. And then we have Dr. Gary Wood, PhD, LCSW, so many letters after your name, Vice President of Curriculum and Instruction here at Genius Academy. He's got over 25 years of experience. He's a licensed clinical social worker, an amazing person, and I've been collaborating with him for I think 15 years now, Gary. Say hi.
Hi, everyone. Glad to be
Yay.
here.
So these two represent two sides of this dynamic conversation. James brings this vision of innovation at scale, and Gary grounds us in the daily reality of faculty and students and actually outcomes. So my role is to bridge the two and to start this conversation. And hopefully we learn a little bit today. So James, I'll start with you. When you look at AI in education right now, what excites you the most? What feels real and not just hype?
Well, probably what excites me the most as a CTO with experience is of how much people are beginning to pay attention to their sort of data strategy overall, and how much people are beginning to realize gaps in their capabilities. Uh, AI is sort of moving everyone in the right direction. Specifically, coming to AI, I think personalization is definitely real. There's definitely a lot, as we could tell, a lot of companies that are trying to challenge and understand if personal tutoring model is right for everyone over more than 100 years. It has been a proven model of that tutoring really works, and it continues to prove over studies. And I think that personalization is real. I think that the downside of that is that there's so many of them. How do you know which one works and what works for you? And to add to that, not everyone who starts an AI company fully understands the LLM behind what they sort of wrapping, and so you have this sort of wild west a bit of AI right now of people figuring out how to use it and where to go with it. But I am excited about personalization and ability to really meet every student where they are, which is to me sort of the golden rule of education.
James, do you think there's a lot of like hype out there, quote unquote?
So there's always a lot of hype when there's a certain a fair amount of money involved, which is there's a lot of it. Uh, but the problem with hype is you don't know whether it's hype or not until you sort of run enough data on it, and because stuff is so new, people could claim variety of different things, and some of it will probably be real and some of it is not. And so yeah, I think you have to navigate with data and experience and just choose the right vendors and the right partners to go into the future with. So yeah.
So Gary, when you look at AI in education, what excites you the most?
Well, there's two interlocking aspects that really combined is what drives the excitement for me right now. And the first is that, oh, well, over the years, we have developed really high quality simulations that put the user in the spot of a clinician or whatever, whatever discipline that we were wanting to work with. Um, and with AI, using that as a tool, that has allowed us to help the professors be able to evaluate and give feedback to their students who are using these simulations. And together, that is making it such that students on a much larger scale can experience what these simulations are like so that they could learn from a simulation. They can learn specific skills that they need for clinical practice, for whatever they're focusing on, so that when they get to an internship, say, they already arrive with skills themselves. And the part that really supercharges this is being able to use AI as a tool to help with student feedback, because every time a student does a simulation, that would require professors to do a fair amount of work to evaluate and give feedback to the student. But with AI as a tool, a well-trained, meticulously guided AI, if you will, that takes a lot of the workload off the professor. And you can do a lot more simulations. Students could be doing simulations every week without making a huge workload for the professor. So that's pretty exciting. It's scalable.
Thanks, Gary. Something that's coming to mind for me right now is really, when AI came into the mix, we've been doing simulations, all of us together, this kind of, practice specifically in mental health, nursing, et cetera, for so long. And when AI came into the mix, initially I was like, oh, it can be a patient. And as I tested it, it couldn't be because of the realism that is needed to really show affect and detail, right? But as I sat there and, serendipitously, as my life is, looking at this, I was also going through a personal tragedy, which was the loss of my father, realizing that if he had had better trained professionals that had maybe taken our simulations or simulations at all, they would have been able to help him more. Before his passing. And that's where I came up with the idea to infuse AI not as an actual avatar or chatbot, but actually to validate and prove that students that were going through our simulations were working. And so when you're looking at AI, I think it's not like a one size fits all. It shouldn't just be AI as a solution, but it's like this intersection of different types of technology in order to prove an outcome. And so that's what I'm really excited about. So like James, coming back to you, sorry to pick on you, thinking of that and kind of this intersection of technology and from your experience building at scale, what separates like AI tool to AI tool from one that maybe will work and one that you think may be hype?
Well, like any tools, they have to be sort of assigned to a specific task and hopefully be, for a business sake, have some sort of a unique application in that space. Besides assuming all the tech stuff works, so with a lot of those assumptions, I think it is important to have the right tool for the right job. I think it's important to be a tool, in our case, that educators use and not that sort of can collaborate with humans. Because specifically in what my understanding what Genius Academy does, working in mental health care, working in psychiatry, working in social work and such, it takes combination of a human touch to get that human reaction and AI to let you do it at scale, and as Gary said, as many times as you want. And I'm married to someone in psychiatry and mental health care. She does this a couple times a week. But these are real humans with real life events, with diluted or not, eyes and all that stuff that goes into it. And something that I don't, when I've seen some other products that use either animation or sort of more AI generated options, they sometimes lose that human touch and therefore do not invoke the same human reaction. So if you can connect that and with ability for AI to do everything for basically for a price of compute and as many times as you want, and for us to be able to send out better mental health care and behavioral sort of workers out in the field that are touching so many lives every day, I think that's an interesting combination, not only that is, in my opinion, needed, but should, in my opinion, be more of a main ingredient to all of these sort of types of programs.
You've told me this story, which is one of my favorite nuggets, about the rise of mobile and how everyone readily adapted it. Can you kind of share that story as applied to kind of the dawn of AI?
Well, I think when we were talking about it, I think we went all the way back to the invention of TV, and when they invented TVs, they didn't know what to do with that, and so they just played radio on TV. So there would be like a picture of Elvis, and Elvis would play out of your TV. But then they realized, like, wow, you could do a lot more. You could do talk shows, you could do movies, you could do wide variety of what it has become our TV today. And so I think I remember when mobile started, sort of the mobile Wild West started, everyone was sort of shrinking their websites into the size of a phone, whatever the iPhone size was at the time, without understanding that iPhone was this new medium that sort of is always in your pocket, has a geolocation, you take it everywhere with you. It could be used for a variety of good and bad things, kind of thing. And I think AI is kind of going through that curve as well, where right now people are just saying, like, how can I AI what I do today without realizing that you can do things that you weren't able to do before. Like, for example, what this really is almost like a clinical rotation. I'm not saying whether it's a real clinical rotation or not, but something that is so hard to get, takes so much energy to find for students, because I've done this in the past. And I think is a tool that really creates a lot of much needed access.
Thank you, James. So, like, kind of switching back over to Gary, when faculty evaluate these tools that we're talking about, is there like a checklist or something they should keep in mind before adopting? We've looked at a lot of these things out there.
Well, that's a good thing to keep in mind. And I would say start simply, particularly if you're just sort of, putting your foot in the water for the first time and so forth. So think about starting small and not trying to revamp your whole course, but find some places where you can insert some tools and let your students evaluate them for you. They'll give you feedback and see how they see how they how they do and how they like it and what they're saying about it. They're very discriminate about the kinds of education they're receiving, and they always let us know. I'd also say to think about the why, the what, and the where. Okay, why are you looking to change your curriculum at all? Okay, have a purpose. In other words, don't just put AI in your course somehow because, oh, I want to have AI. Everybody's got it, right? There needs to be a purpose that it's serving. What is that purpose? Where is there an area that your students might be struggling with or having a more difficult time in some way? How could you improve that? And then also important is the where. Where are you going to put it? Where is it going to be inserted within the particular curriculum? And I might suggest that you start small and find like let's say three places or 3 weeks that you could insert something and run it a little bit as though it's a pilot. I mean, if you really want to go and do all, 10 weeks or whatever you have, go for it. But, see how it works first. And, the next time the course is offered, if it's working well, bump it up a little.
Really good. Very true. Do you also think faculty should be looking at like efficacy like not just from their students, but from, the people or the tools they're looking at? Would you say that's important?
Of course, you'd love to know that something works. Now, I imagine that many tools are so new, there may not be a whole lot of established efficacy that's involved. But if they have it, certainly take a look at it. What is it able to do? And what has it been shown to do? And then see if you have the same results, after you start installing it within your course.
I
Yeah,
think one of,
I think
oh,
about it. Sorry, go ahead, Marco.
no, go ahead.
I was just going to say that, I often talk to companies that say something in the order of we do X, Y, and Z AI, A, B, and C. And I always ask if AI is sort of their frosting or it's their sugar, meaning is it something that just sort of sits on top of your previous decisions, or is it the main ingredient of what you sort of do? Uh, in the case of curriculum, I almost feel, and I worked, a lot with a variety of universities in the past and such. Um, it's important to think of it the same way. Right now, AI, there's a bit of a tool race. Everyone has a tool. Everyone has a tool that converts your content, does thingamajiggy, and it's important to still understand those are still tools. It's important to drive with sort of understanding what experiments you're sort of setting up, but also understanding the difference whether you're working something into your day-to-day curriculum that was sort of a tool that will help you throughout your curriculum and answer a lot of sort of questions versus something that's frosting that can only really sit on top and maybe be more ancillary. I kind of see it a bit like that as well.
Hey, Rocco, can I add just one more point? And I really didn't get to the some of the points about the where, and that is when you're considering, where you're going to put it in the curriculum, it may be displacing something else, or it may be in addition to something else. And so there's different things to consider. Are you putting it in a synchronous class session, whether that be an on-campus or an online session? Or is this going to be outside of class as a homework assignment or something that students will do asynchronously by themselves? Because depending on that, you may be shifting your curriculum around to be able to, figure out where am I going to put this new item in the curriculum. So think about that ahead of time.
Really good point. Really good point. It's so interesting that we look for feedback from the students as they go through the process. And, since we're giving them feedback, I expected some of them to be upset if they didn't do perfectly. And it's amazing to see how receptive they are to the feedback in the system, that they love the feedback because it's helping them achieve a skill that isn't that there's no way to get this real-time experience. And I think that's what's, if it would take hundreds and hundreds of professors and people watching this to be able to do what AI does, which is this quick ingesting of data and this real-time feedback. And so that's what's really so interesting about, this new era is, students, I think, are delighted to play with and to try different technology. And it's solving a lot of points. And I think that's the thing that you need to look at as an educator is what problems am I solving and how am I engaging students? Because the days of just these straight textbooks are kind of, for the dinosaurs now.
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more. That students will find this it's difficult and it's a little threatening. If they're doing it by themselves, a little less, but still, it's threatening. They're putting themselves on the line, but that's how you acquire the skill, is by practicing and doing that and so forth. And so they'll do it and they'll do it again, and because they want to get good. And this is the way you do it. This is a rehearsal for the live show.
Yeah. So, James, coming back to you now, how can schools create safe spaces for low risk experimentation? We've really focused a lot on security as well with systems and LLMs. Can you kind of talk a little bit about that?
Well, I'm a big fan in delivering education in one place. right? Like uh, I think one of the things I understand that, for example, you folks do, you work with LTI and other open standards to sort of like work directly into learning management systems and whatnot. I think that really helps with experimentation as well, because it's sort of easier to turn on, easier to use. But you also have, my understanding is it's fairly easy to enter standalone application. And so I think it's important to, you know, when you're buying these types of products, that you're not paying upfront too much for integration. A lot of companies will do that. That sort of brings you in and maybe makes you a customer for longer, but might not drive satisfaction or the outcomes you're necessarily looking for. And I would also say always, you know, you have when you're experimenting, you have to make sure you understand the data and what you're trying to achieve with that experiment. You know, measuring, almost maybe a question back to you, you know, when experiment goes well, what should a faculty expect when it comes to student satisfaction, their ability to sort of experiment new things and such? How would you measure that? And I think something like that really helps understand whether you're moving in the right direction or not.
Very good. So let's switch gears and talk a bit about student impact. So, Gary, you have been integrating simulation for 15 years. You've built one of the first online social work programs. I think, James, you had something to do with that too. You know, Gary, you've seen students in both theory-driven and practice-driven environments, specifically in the healthcare space. What changes when they get to live in a simulation and practice a skill rather than just hearing about it?
This is huge. The difference is it's just phenomenally great. It's wonderful to hear a real clear explanation of what a skill is and what you're supposed to do. It's great to see good modeling, really essential to have somebody who knows how to do it actually show, and you can watch how they do it. But it's quite a step further to say, okay, now you do it. And that's what the simulations require of students. And it does it in a way which is very lifelike. It seems very realistic. Our patients, clients, they bring their full range of emotions with them, and it feels real. And so the ability to practice in a safe environment, even though it seems really real, but it's a simulation. If you mess up, you try it again and repeat. That's so much better in many ways that students take it very seriously. They want to do well. And at the same time, they can practice it again afterwards. Practice and practice until they refine it to a point that they're able to show up for that first real interview with a patient and have a large skill set already at their disposal that they already know how to do. And that's what simulation really prepares students for the real thing that they're going to be doing in the future.
I'd just love to add, Gary, double underline what you said. But the reason it feels real, because it sort of is real, right? Because these big LLMs, they are sort of trained on the data collected from real humans around, you know, all sorts of sources. And then my understanding trained in specific things. But nevertheless, the reason it feels real because it is trained on real human data. It's not like simulation trained on top of simulation, but it's simulation trained that sits on top of sort of, you know, the wealth of human knowledge a little bit. And so it totally does feel very real, just like all this AI, as much as it scares a lot of folks, and that always happens as well. You know, it does begin to feel very real on both emotional and other levels as well. And that's why I think, you know, we're just seeing the tip of the iceberg here a bit.
It's getting smarter and smarter and smarter, which is really interesting and more capable. And it's interesting to see the different LLMs release different new applications of what AI can do. It almost disrupts an entire industry overnight as there are new releases. We're kind of talking about that, James. Well, oh my gosh, we are already past our time. So let me kind of rock through this. Let's kind of go into a piece of advice for faculty. Gary, if you had a piece of advice for faculty joining us today about incorporating AI or AI simulations, what would it be?
I would encourage you to jump in at whatever degree or speed is right for you. I think this is the wave of the present and future, to begin training our students to be able to do things rather than just to know things. I mean, we're always trying to get them to that. In the professions, it's always about doing something. So we've been very good over time about developing their knowledge about things. And then a lot of times the skill comes from practical applications in internships and practicum placements and so forth. But to have this bridge in between classroom and an internship is, I think, the wave of the future. It's the middle zone, the transition zone between going from classroom into clinical practice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I would say, for me as a sort of technologist, I always get excited about how different digital capabilities can come together to create new sort of liquefy new markets, create new opportunities, create new access to things. And so I would just encourage, everyone to kind of question everything you knew before, because we're going through a real revolution. And if you thought yesterday you cannot put a student in front of 20 suicide patients in the next 3 hours, maybe you can. And originally, when Rocket showed me what the platform could do, it's one thing to hear about it, another thing is to see it. Honestly, the best thing you folks can do with probably the rest of this time is to show us what it looks like.
Okay. And yeah, I think everyone on this webinar gets access to this to integrate for this semester. So I will go ahead and share my screen and kind of walk you through a little bit about what we do here. If there is Q&A, please start putting that in the chat so we can go ahead and share that with you and answer any questions you have at the end of this. Let me go ahead and share my screen. So at Genius Academy, as I mentioned, we've developed this thing called what we call the Immersive Practicum Lab, which is a combination of technology, AI, and the art of Hollywood filmmaking. Nothing makes you more engaged really than when you binge watch Netflix or a movie or a TV show and you forget that time and space exists and you start to resonate with characters as if it's actually your own life. It's really an amazing thing. We call that cognitive empathy. And so what we're doing here is taking the very human touch of cinematic filmmaking, engaging students and allowing them to practice in this real time. And James has coined it the flight simulator or the simulator since the get-go, because it truly is. Like, why is it that, never would a pilot get into a plane without a flight simulator? Never would a doctor do surgery without practicing on a cadaver first. But in the health professions, to work with a suicidal patient or what have you, it's often they're practicing with patients when they're in the field, when they're in their internships, when they're in their jobs for the very first time. And so we've created this way to simulate that and give a very didactic experience. So learners are immersed in this cinematic experience where they feel like they're actually there. They're then asked to practice a skill. They then can decide to respond in video or audio. And then that's where we use AI to analyze those recordings. And in real time, we give them feedback on their skills through a dimension of different soft skills, but also like conceptualization, analyzation, and different ways to apply, their knowledge to working with that patient. The cool thing is they can refine, repeat, oh, that's scary, master as they do it again and again and again. And we see them actually, since we're assessing different skills in each and every interaction, we're seeing them get better and better and better. And all they need is a device connected to the internet. So we don't need VR goggles or anything like that. We're really like immersing them in a very easy technology. I will play this because I am a visual learner, so you guys could see it. And then we're going to go ahead and open it up for Q&A.
You know, it's just this feeling of being outside myself, or that things happening to me are happening to someone else. It's like I'm in her body instead of my own. You know, if that makes sense. And I can't control her. I'm seriously afraid of what she might say or do. And then just like that, it's gone.
So that's Stephanie. She is having a dissociative moment.
Thank you for sharing that experience with me. Could you tell me about another time where you might have felt lost or as if you had no control over yourself?
So that's our student. And in real time, he's taken to a feedback portal after he hits submit, and that recording has been analyzed. First, for building skills. If you could see here, we're thanking him for his thoughtful approach. And in this case, we asked him for empathic communication. If you remember, he was looking everywhere, kind of darting his eyes and not really being focused. So we note that a key area for improvement could be maintaining eye contact. We asked him, because he did sound like a robot a little bit, to soften his voice further, because we're also looking at pitch, tone, and inflection. And, we're also not just pushing a video feed into AI and saying, analyze this. What we've developed, this patented technology, is we're actually pushing a human-backed subject matter expert verified rubric in this real-time experience. So as related to his talking with Stephanie, we're actually asking him to express a little bit more empathy towards Stephanie's distress. And we've created this genius proctor kind of character in its own self. We do offer a real-time experience for educators to actually see the progress in real time using our platform, but I won't show that now because we are out of time, but that's the basic technology. Gary, James, do you have anything to add before we move into Q&A?
No, go ahead.
Well, I would
No?
say the only thing to add is that my understanding from your explanations before, that the model is trained on DSM-5. It's trained on sort of against the curriculum, and could even be customized to some degree.
Oh yeah, we were able to work and create a whole partnership looking at and working with the dyslexic student in classrooms. The use case here is very vast and wide, but we started in healthcare because the millions and millions of patients out there really deserve to have trained professionals and people very sensitive to the dynamics of the real world today. Our first question: are you able to assess facial expressions and body language, voice level, and tone? Yes, we are. It is amazing. Video recording, as you could see, as you look at your smartphone, you could type in any word and it will index, pictures, videos, etc. So video recognition is not a new technology, right? And you could deduce so many different data sets from a video itself. And so whether it's how the person is holding themselves, where they're looking, voice level, and then an advancement that's been really interesting to me is something that we call prosody. Prosody is the difference between saying, I hate you and I hate you. It's the tone of voice. So it's two different ways. And so AI can actually measure that inflection piece to measure how empathetic or how sincere someone is. And that was really revolutionary as we looked to integrate that into our technology. Any other questions? Any last words of wisdom to two of my favorite people?
Well, I would say, everyone can tell that things are changing, and it's a good time to experiment. Not every not every .com made it. Not every iPhone app is here today. People have done some crazy things during those times. Both times I've been there. But nevertheless, through that experimentation, that evolution, you get some of the best products. And I think with as much personalization as AI brings, it's important for everyone to find their own sort of stack of tools and their own voice in this like quickly changing world. So that'll be mine.
Gary?
I would just say, try it. Just try it. I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised, maybe a little astounded. I know I was when I first started seeing some of the feedback and evaluation that AI is capable of, and it is rather amazing. For me to actually critique the same student performance, I would probably take a couple of days to write out something, and it pretty much nails it very quickly. Anyway, give it a try. I think you'll find it very illuminating.
Oh, we got one more question. How much prep time would I need to add simulations to my class? Well, obviously, as Gary said, it's about how many you're integrating. But with us, it's not like a forced customization, which you really need to think about, like creating something from scratch. We have a huge library of different patient scenarios, problems, practice scenarios, and so it's fairly easy. It would take, I think, about 30 minutes to consider popping it right into your LMS.
And
Yeah.
just to add to that, Rocco, in planning wise, the easiest way for you to do this is you make it basically a homework assignment, something that's done outside, so you don't have to scramble your in-class kind of assignments. But so make it a homework assignment. Everything can be done asynchronously by the students, and that way will be a lot less disruptive.
Absolutely. Well, thank you both so much for your time. We've got a bunch of other questions. We're going to have to answer them after the fact, but thank you all for all the people in the room. Thank you so much for joining us. I really look forward to continuing more of these conversations. I think we learn something new every day, even when talking the two of you, but also here at Genius Academy, as the world is shifting and changing so quickly and it's evolving, it's almost impossible to keep up. But if we can share more of these dialogues and share more with our educator community on technology as it's advancing, I think we could really revolutionize education. So thank you, James, and thank you, Gary, for being my subjects today. And I look forward to more conversations in the future. Bye, everyone.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Great.
Bye-bye.
Bye.